So I dropped the gun, went and got a fire extinguisher, ran outside, and Roger was all out of breath, choking from smoke inhalation. He had gone back into the house 3 times trying to get what he could out of the house. It was definitely on fire. So we left Florida, made it to Colorado in 48 hours. It was absolutely amazing seeing our families after not seeing them for more than a year.
Yeah.
Got to see everybody.
We really expected Colorado to be a place where we would relax. So we're big fans of moochdocking because you have your own private space, but you still get to be really close to family. And Roger and Pat's are kind of like John's adopted parents, right?
I love them.
And so it was the night of the last debate, and the temperature was supposed to be down to 19 degrees.
So Roger and Pat that night invited us to stay inside because of the cold temperatures. We declined. We said we love our RV, where RV is now. And it's funny because we have not stayed inside of a hotel or anybody's house for well over a year now.
It's been a long time. So we watched the debate together. We have dinner together.
We headed out to the RV, and Pat and Roger went to bed at around 10:30. And Mercedes and I did what we needed to do. We got Sage all tucked in, went to bed. And then at around 11:30 at night, there was a huge thump on the side of the RV, and I didn't know what it was. It kind of startled both of us. So I went to the door and I was yelling, "Hello, hello, who is it? Who is it?" There was no answer. So I immediately went ahead and got my gun and I went back to the door. And right as I got to the door, there was another loud thump, but it was Pat screaming, "Fire, fire." Went and got a fire extinguisher, ran outside, and Roger was all out of breath, choking from smoke inhalation. He had gone back into the house 3 times trying to get what he could out of the house. It was definitely on fire.
Well, yeah, because the first time he called 911 using the house phone disconnected. So then he went in to get his cell phone. Then he had to get his glasses because he couldn't use his cell phone without the glasses.
Yeah.
So that was 3 times of going back in and getting smoke inhalation. And then Pat, she just got the dog. She didn't even have like socks on. She barely got shoes on. She didn't have a jacket.
Be careful, Pat.
And it's 19 degrees outside, you know, so
and
it's a pretty cold night.
And the smoke pouring out of the top of the house. And so
the fire department got there pretty quick, but unfortunately they really weren't able to really start because it's such a rural location that they actually had to bring water.
There was no fire hydrant.
Sandy! Water!
So there was actually, I think, 4 vehicles with water, 4 fire trucks, 2 ambulances, a police cruiser. They had even someone from the building department there. It was like, I don't know, at least a dozen cars all lining the road.
And one of the things that was so frustrating is that the fire department kind of surrounded the house with about 25, 30 firefighters, but nobody was doing anything. And I think they were a little bit baffled by where the fire was.
Yeah.
And Roger kept telling them it was started in the chase. He had started a fire in the basement for the very first time in an old stove. But he's been using this stove for 44 years, never had a problem.
Yeah.
And so he told them what was going on, but for some reason the fire department did not seem to believe what he was telling them. He told them exactly where the fire was and told them it was up in the attic.
Fire's in the ceiling of the basement. And we're up the chase. It's in the attic now.
Okay, so it doesn't look like it'll be safe to stay here tonight.
Hey, okay.
That's what I tried to tell him. I told him where it started.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird fire though, because when you think of a building being on fire, you think of the fire being visible to the exterior. This one was really more like in the walls. And all you could see was tons and tons of smoke. It was a really long night. I don't think anybody started going to sleep or anything until 5. At least the only person that got sleep was Sage. She was out. I don't know how she didn't wake up throughout the whole thing, but she was out.
Roger and Pat did a really, really good job. They both have a great sense of humor. Of course, they were devastated, but we were laughing throughout. It was a little bit frustrating.
Actually, can I get a battery?
It felt like they could have done a better job at lighting the place up. It was dark for a long, long time around the house. After about 30 minutes, they finally started to make a plan of how they were going to attack the fire. and they were having a really hard time starting a chainsaw. And Roger and I are just sitting there, just like, put this thing out. Come on, guys, get on it.
You're just looking at it, trying to figure it out.
One of the things that really struck me was that even though Roger and Pat were sad that they were losing some things that were really dear to them, they never once complained in the sense of like, why me? In fact, they actually found a lot of humor. Like Pat, she ran out of the house and she didn't even have socks, but she had managed to grab one sock and put it in her pocket.
At least I did with my pants on.
And she just was really had a good attitude and was laughing at that. And even though they were really upset, they didn't add to the bad situation with a bad attitude.
But I do your date of birth as well.
9/8/44.
I'm sorry?
9/8/44.
Holy
I know.
not even in a century. Hope they wiped their feet before they went in.
Now, the blessing in all this is that we were RVing at their house, right? And so we were able to have them come into our RV where it was warm.
6389. It's in the house.
Yeah.
Her wallet, everything.
I figured.
We were parked next to Roger's barn, which he actually runs on a separate electrical circuit. So the fire inside the house cut all the lines. There was no power in there, but Mercedes and I, where we were moochdocking, we were still connected to the barn power. So we were able to keep heat inside the RV. The paramedics were able to come in and tend to Roger. Roger has asbestos damage in his lungs. He has asthma. And so they just wanted to make sure that he was okay.
The RV turned into Command Central.
Yes.
And it was the only warm place. And I actually asked them, what do you guys do when this happens and there's no RV outside for people to hang out?
Yeah, and typically they do it in the ambulance, right?
Yeah, they say, well, we put people in warm cars or ambulances or wherever we can stuff them. But we were really, really grateful for that. And not only that, but they were able to actually stay with us afterwards because it was so dark, the place was so poorly lit that we couldn't really see the devastation until the day after.
Right. So the fire department was there for about four and a half hours. Roger and Pat were just exhausted.
Yeah.
You know, the chief of the fire department had to come in. They had these investigators that came in and had interviewed them inside the RV to find out if it was, you know, I guess this is typical what they do when they're trying to find out if it was an intentional fire or an accidental fire.
Yeah.
They did conclude that it was an accidental fire in the fire chase from down below.
Yeah, it was actually really, the other thing that I realized is that, you know, we tried calling her insurance company, Safeco.
Recorded for quality assurance and other purposes. Learn more about our privacy policy at libertymutual.com/privacy. Not again with it. How can I help you today?
Fire claim.
One little hotspot state.
I didn't get it.
It was midnight or
That was
past
so
midnight.
frustrating.
It was all automated. They wanted her to do it online and they wanted her policy number. Well, when you're running out of a burning building with nothing but your life, the last thing you're going to pick up is your insurance card or even like extra keys. Like she wasn't able to open the garage or open her vehicles that were outside of the garage because you don't think to have hide keys with all the other types of keys too. It makes me think that maybe you need to have like those policy numbers or extra keys in other places, you know, have those redundancies because they literally had nothing.
So Roger and Pat were absolutely exhausted. Roger climbed up in the top bunk over our driving seat in the GG Mobera Class C.
Yeah.
We set Pat up. Our RV actually seats 10.
Not comfortably,
But we had
can.
4 adults, Sage, and 2 dogs in the RV that weren't too fond of each other.
They did okay.
So it was interesting, but by the time the fire department had finished, the main investigator came in, grabbed me, and he told me that he needed to do a walkthrough inside the house. So Roger was sleeping, Pat was not, she was awake. So I asked Pat, do you want me to do this walkthrough? She said, you go ahead and do it. Roger, Pat, Mercedes, and the baby are in the RV sleeping. All of the firefighters are gone now, and I did a quick walkthrough with the detective who makes a decision on whether these are intentional fires or accidents. And he walked me through Roger and Pat's house, and Roger and Pat haven't seen the inside of the house yet, and I think they're going to be pretty devastated in the morning. I have experience with something like this from many, many years ago. Our house burnt down, And it's the strangest thing about it is the smell. The smell from that fire that we had years ago is still with me. And walking through the house with the detective and seeing the damage that is done and that smell, it just brought back a lot of rough memories. And I'm worried about Roger and Pat. Roger's 78. Pat, I think, is 76. Both in incredible shape. Roger does have a lot of problems with his lungs, asbestos damage, construction worker, a lot like I am. There's a big 8 by 4 foot hole in the roof. It's starting to snow out right now. The temperatures have dropped down to about 18 degrees, so it's really, really cold. I just don't want to go in the RV and wake them up. They're going to need as much rest as they can possibly get tonight, because tomorrow is going to be a pretty rough day for them. They're going to have to go into that house, look at the reality of what happened tonight, and they're going to have to start collecting a lot of their belongings. You know, you think when you have a good insurance company, you should have an 800 number where you can talk to a human being. I know Pat's probably going to be in tears when she sees the damage that's done inside the house, and she's going to need a lot of support. I'm so grateful that they got out alive. I'm so grateful that no one got hurt, and I guess I'm really grateful that we were here for them tonight. Because they get to stay at the house, in the RV, in the GG mobile just outside, and hopefully they'll get enough rest tonight to deal with what's coming in the morning. We're not going to let Sage go into that house because that's kind of like Grandma and Grandpa's house now. We just don't want her. We don't want her to walk in and see that type of devastation. We don't know what we're going to do next. We're actually planning on heading to Utah. We're going to try to jump out of here before the cold weather comes in. Sunday they were calling for 8. Monday 1. That was yesterday. We'll see. We'll check it again today and see what it is. But I guess we're going to be staying here for a while and giving Pat and Roger all the support, you know, that we can give them. Love them and help them through this. One of the things we absolutely loved, just like in any tragedy, is the outpouring of love and support that Roger and Pat got from their neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a dozen places to stay. People were bringing over clothes for them. Remember, they lost everything.
Yeah, everyone was trying to come up with different ways to help. They were offering to take care of the dog. They were trying to see who had the sizes closest to Pat and Roger to loan them clothes. Food, and in fact some of the neighbors were actually mad. They're like, why are you staying in the RV? Stay in my house, I have a room. So the insurance side really didn't start moving until they talked to their insurance agent, and actually their agent's retired, so he's not even working anymore. But the 1-800 number was getting them nowhere. So as soon as they actually called their agent, who wasn't even an agent anymore, he called the people in the office, and then things got moving really quickly. Which brings a side note of why you really do need an agent and not just the 1-800 number. So when the fire happened, we decided that we were going to stay as long as Roger and Pat needed us. And even though there was a winter storm coming that threatened with Arctic freeze, we figured we would just ride it out in Colorado. But two things happened. The first was that the temperature forecast kept getting worse and worse and worse, and we were facing 48 hours straight of below freezing sub-zero temperatures. The second thing that happened was that they actually needed the space that we were occupying for the contractors and dumpsters and so forth. All of a sudden, and this happened really fast, with like one morning we wake up thinking we're gonna stay, and then an hour later we realized it was
time to go. So
that was hard. I had a hard time with that because I wanted to enjoy my family more.
Yep.
But at the same time, the RV could not sustain those temperatures.
Right, and we were able to see all of our family. We were able to get out of there in about 4 hours. We're pretty good at moving quick now that we're RVers.
Oh boy. So we realized that we had to get out of Metro Denver quick, but we didn't know which way to go. So we certainly weren't going to go north. That makes no sense. West would have been warmer, but we would have had to traverse the mountains, and the mountains always get the snow first. That would have been way too dangerous. So we had to go south. But actually, surprisingly, we had to go southwest. So we still had to hit mountains. We still had to go through snow, but it wasn't quite as sub-zero freezing temperatures like it was where our family is.
So we headed towards our next destination. We went through the Sangre de Cristos Mountains. We went through Wolf Creek Pass. We videotaped all of it. We were staying at an absolutely gorgeous resort.
Yep.
Natural hot springs, geothermal hot springs in Ghost Springs. And that's our next video. So we'll see you in the next video.